Okay everybody, so I did that video on the new public test realm maps, but I left the Fog of War on. I just put two computer opponents against each other, and that was pretty much a mistake, whereas now someone has just told me, get in a single player game, use the disable Fog of War cheat, and now you can see everything. So here we go. This is Lost Temple 2. You'll notice the main looks pretty much the same, but at the natural expansion the two gases are both on one side. There's no more cliff here. Instead there's just a little path over to some destructible rocks, up a little ramp here towards this former island expansion. It now has access from both sides via these destructible rocks, and it is technically on high ground, so if you want to defend it, at least you can set some stalkers up or something like that. The high yield looks more or less exactly the same, not very different at all. And of course these naturals are going to look the same at each one of the natural expansions, with the two gas on one side and no more cliff anywhere on the map. The other island expansion of course looks exactly the same as the one in the bottom right. And the other big difference here is that the Xel'Naga towers have been removed and replaced with just one here in the very dead center of the map. Here you can see it is extremely open here. Lots of room for flanks and things like that. It's going to be very hard to hold this Xel'Naga tower, I think, no matter what race you are. There's a little bit of high ground up here on the bottom left and the top right parts, but visibility blockers still where they used to be. Nothing crazy going on there. And that is the preview for what I'm calling Lost Temple 2. I don't know. Someone actually suggested we call it Found Temple, and I thought that was clever. So here we have Found Temple, since they found it and renovated it and knocked down some cliffs and things and changed the Xel'Naga tower. But anyway, that's the first test map. It's labeled as Test Map 1 right now on the public test realm, so you can go play it. Now let's go look at the next one. Okay, so here we are on the next map, which I have deemed to be named Dirt Farm, and the natural is pretty large. You've got a visibility blocked area back here that could be prone to drops or Reaper attacks or something like that, even proxy pylons and things, sort of like Metalopolis. You need to be aware of that. There are 4 spawn points again on this map, 1 in each corner, and it does have just symmetry through the middle of the map, not so much symmetry through this. There's no vertical symmetry, it's horizontal symmetry, so it folds over from top to bottom and looks exactly the same. But each base again does have these little visibility blockers. If you want to take a look at your natural, it is very protected, not a lot of wide open areas here, so actually yeah, it is pretty wide open. It could be tough to defend that natural. Your third base is going to be down a slight ramp here most of the time, or you could come up to the top and try to take this blue base, but since it's not a high yield, I wouldn't recommend it. There's really it's really more of a fourth base option, and only if you're at cross positions. I'm not sure how Blizzard has these maps coded, whether you can spawn both on the top of the map or if you only spawn top to bottom or cross. I don't know. Shakuris Plateau, they've got it coded so you can't spawn top to bottom, but that was, I think, because it was originally a 2v2 map and they needed to fix that, or else the bases would be way too close to each other. So this one appears to have a lot of space, so I think it's probable that you'll be able to spawn in any of these 4 corners and your opponent in any other corner. So after you've got your natural and your potential 4th base, the middle of the map has a big old wide hole here, like Xel'Naga Caverns does in the middle of it, and there are 2 Xel'Naga towers on either side of the middle. There's some terrain, raised up elevated spaces here that you can park some stuff, and I'm not positive if you can actually hold on to these Xel'Naga towers from there. But if you look at, if you get cross positions and you come down your ramp, you can walk, it's essentially a straight line all the way down the middle of the map. It forms a big X if you look at the mini-map, just a big X right through the middle. And so this map could be actually pretty cool. There are these little side avenues. If you do get top and bottom spawns, all you have to do is break down one little set of destructible rocks, and there you are at your enemy's natural. So make sure when you're taking your natural expansion that you protect against this ramp a little bit, as well as fortifying this wide open space. So on to the next map. This was Dirt Farm. Let's go take a look at the next one. Okay, and this map I have deemed to be named Desert Hills. It looks like the Blistering Sands tile set, if you couldn't tell. And I almost wanted to call it some other parody of Blistering Sands, but I already did that with Lost Temple 2. So this main area is pretty large. Lots of room to build basically whatever you want. The natural actually has a little bit of terrain helping you defend against that, and sort of breaks this very large choke up into two smaller chokes, kind of like Xel'Naga Caverns just outside the natural. Destructible rocks, though, also hanging out right here, mean that you're going to have to be aware of those backdoor entrances into your natural. After you take the natural, your potential third is kind of in a weird spot. There is some high ground right here. That's the hill part of Desert Hills. Your opponent could actually take this high ground and shoot down at your natural with tanks or stalkers or anything like that, so you need to be aware of that when taking your third base. Alternatively, you could take a gold as your third base depending where your enemy spawns. If you're at cross positions, this is probably going to be okay to take as a third. If you're at top and bottom, though, probably going to be less likely. Same with bottom spawns, or both being top spawn. Again, this third base looks kind of shaky, and this gold base doesn't really look too bad. You could actually be sieged up from here, sort of like Metalopolis, and these Xel'Naga towers being so close to each other really remind me of Metalopolis as well. Their vision overlaps, and they're the only Xel'Naga towers on the map, so controlling these probably going to be very important here on Test Map 3, aka Desert Hills. And here is a Lyot. He kind of looks like a mean jackal, but what are you going to do? Lyots, they just hang out. Sometimes they eat human babies, but that's it for Desert Hills, more or less. Each player can really afford to take 1, 2, 3 bases at the max, unless it gets into just a huge game, and of course you can hide bases up at these other spawns as you would any other 4-player map. It's important to note all the new 1v1 test maps are 4 spawn location maps. There's no more Steps of War or Xel'Naga Caverns where there's just 2 spawns so you know exactly where your opponent is right away. Instead, they're all these 4-player, 4-spawn maps. So if they do hit the ladder pool, they might actually remove some of the 2-player maps, some of the 2-spawn maps. Anyway, on to map 4. Okay, so here we are on test map, 1v1 test map number 4. I've codenamed this one Dump because it looks like a dump and Junkyard was already taken. Check out this giant robot back here doing scrap stuff. That's cool. I didn't notice him the first time. Anyway, here we are on Dump. Your main is actually quite small compared to all the other new maps, and you've got a decent sized ramp right here. It looks to be a little wider than the one you would see on Metalopolis or Lost Temple. Your natural seems to be pretty well guarded here just by minerals and these geysers here, but you do see these visibility blockers. The smoke and the destructible debris here means that your natural is accessible from another part of the map, so you always want to be aware of that backdoor entrance. Going a little further, you've got a little bit of a hole in the ground, a little terrain feature that you can kind of break up this choke if you need to. There's some high ground right here you can park some tanks on potentially. More visibility blockers a la Scrap Station, which are just sort of in a random spot if you ask me, but visibility blockers all over the place here on Dump, and this high yield base actually is a potential third, really not that bad of a third base choice no matter where your enemy spawns. Probably not right here since that flying distance is so very close, but if you get top and your opponent gets right or bottom spawns, I feel like this gold should be very easy to take and a worthy investment there. And of course it's prone to drops, but there's really only one ground entrance here, and you can kind of keep an eye on it without too much problem. So that would be my third base choice. Also, because there aren't really a lot of other options. Your only other options are taking another spawn area and it's natural, almost like Lost Temple, except you have the islands available as well. So up to you where you want to expand. The middle of the map, of course, only has one Xel'Naga tower. It's a big X right through the map. It actually is sort of folded in half across this diagonal from bottom left to top right. So it's not a perfect X through the middle like we saw on Dirt Farm, but it is readily accessible from all 4 of these spawn locations. So if you're in the bottom spawn, for example, you just need to walk down your ramp, walk right into the middle. And this middle of the map is just so massive. It sort of reminds me of Delta Quadrant, but even more just open. And it seems like Blizzard had that in mind when developing all of these maps. It almost seems like they have a skew towards Zerg, because Zerg benefits greatly from having areas to flank from. Of course, Terran can also siege up here in the middle of the map. I'm not sure how many sneaky spots there are here on Dump for Protoss players. They could maybe hide a pylon over here, sneak an observer up, and do some warpins right into the mineral line. That could actually be really devastating. Oh, I forgot I was playing. Anyway, That actually could be a nice strategy there. You could even put a pylon here. I wonder if the power field would reach all the way into the main. Maybe not, but worth trying out anyway. So that is dump, more or less, 4 spawn points, just like the other ones, and now let's go take a look at that last one. Alright, and here is 1v1 test map 5, which I've codenamed Crystal Forest. Your main area does have visibility blocker and destructible rocks, just like on Blistering Sands, so you need to be aware of that. Actually, there are 2 destructible rocks here and no base in between, so that almost reminds me of Shakuras Plateau. Other than that, you've also got a ramp down the middle and a very wide open sort of cliff area here that could be abused. Your natural... your main actually has kind of a lot of area right here where pylons could be hidden, so you need to be aware of that as well. There are some decent spots where you could drop a pylon, use an observer, and warp in up here, just like on dump that we just saw. Your natural appears to be very, very wide open. There is a lot of space here to be attacked from, so you need to just be very careful taking a second there at your natural. Destructible rocks on either side guard this potential third base for you. There are no gold... Actually, there are gold minerals. Why did I say that? Anyway, there are no gold minerals here, anyway, between these destructible rocks, but it is a potential third base for you. Or you could be a little gutsy and go for the gold base as your third, as you would sort of on Xel'Naga Caverns, or even Lost Temple at cross positions. So keep in mind that this gold base is actually very, very, very wide open. There's no terrain, no visibility blockers, no cliffs or anything to be able to defend that from, even if you're Terran. Tank or 2 right here might be able to help defend, but that'd just be very difficult. And the symmetry seems to be going from the bottom left corner to the top right corner, folded over. So again, 4 spawns. You have a decently easy natural, very short distance from your main as usual, and then a gold base actually not too far from your main either. If you actually get some air units, Medivacs, Mutalisks, something like that, the gold base actually is probably going to be a pretty good idea to take as your third, unless you've got your opponent right there across this back door. So keep in mind, your opponent can backdoor you here, just like Shakuras Plateau. Be aware of that. And your natural really doesn't have too much to worry about as long as you can defend it from all sides. Third, kind of safe, kind of tucked away. Gold, actually not too difficult to hold on to, it looks like. In the middle of the map, we have 2 Xel'Naga Towers, again with what seems like overlapping vision, sort of like Metalopolis, except there's nothing in between them. You could actually hold both of them quite easily, so we're actually more like Jungle Basin, I guess. Visibility blockers are all over this map. That's why I called it the Crystal Forest, even though there are no crystals. There are a lot of trees here blocking stuff, shrubbery. But this actually is the cave tile set, I believe, but whatever. You understand why I called it that. So that is pretty much it for the 1v1 test maps. Again, I made this video because the first one I had the Fog of War turned on. A lot of people couldn't really see what was happening, so I figured I'd fix it. And here you go. This is your previews. And one last thing I want to add, I just made a thread on teamliquid.net asking for replays. If you're a very good player, Diamond at least, Diamond or Masters, and you go into the public test realm and play some lovely games on these test realm maps, I will try to get them casted. I'm going to put the thread link in the description of this video. So if you do play some games, upload the replays and post them in that thread, and I will take a look at them. And that's all for right now. I might do the 2v2 maps without the Fog of War as well, so you guys can see those clearly as well. Thanks for your time. See you guys next time.